In the world of Pokemon, there is no greater challenge than a hardcore Nuzlocke. Being able to only catch the first Pokemon you encounter in each location, and losing Pokemon defeated in battle to the cold, ambivalent hands of death can take even the easiest Pokemon games and turn them into a cacophony of heartbreak. Every critical hit, every accidental loss, and every sacrifice required takes away a Pokemon that you held dear and can spell disaster or even the end of a run. And so the question becomes, how many Pokemon can you lose in a Nuzlocke before that run is doomed? This is a question that I answered the hard way a few months back as I played through my Pokemon White 2 Unovalocke challenge. So make sure to stay emotionally unattached as you watch my beloved Pokemon fall one by one. Before getting into the parade of death, however, let me briefly go over the rules of this run. This is a hardcore Nuzlocke, so I can only catch the first Pokemon I see on each route, and of course, fainted Pokemon will be gone forever. Only held items can be used in battle, my Pokemon cannot exceed the level of the next gym's ace Pokemon. Oh, and since this is my Unovalocke, I can only use Pokemon introduced in the 5th generation, excluding legendary Pokemon. And seeing as Gen 5 is the one that I have the least experience playing, let's just say that I maybe filled up a cemetery all on my own in this run. Potentially. Please don't judge me. We begin our journey the same as any other before it, full of hope and ready to select our starter Pokemon. Sadly, Unova starters are kind of poop as a trio, so I just decided to go with Tepig, who I nicknamed Mahogany. On Route 19, I caught my first new friend, Rosewood the Patrat. On Route 20, I failed to catch a Purloin, who hit Rosewood with a critical scratch, so I decided to keep Rosewood alive by KOing this Purloin instead. Still, this does suck since that means I'll have one less teammate to help me take on Charon. At the Flosessi Ranch, I found a... Go away, Psyduck, you're not a Unovan Pokemon. My actual encounter here is Quicksilver the Pidove. So this is my team going into the gym match against Charon, a potential run ender. With no available fighting type moves, I knew that I needed to just brute force my way through the battle, so I led with Quicksilver, hoping to do as much damage as I could with him. On turn 1, I used Leer against Charon's Patrat, only for Quicksilver to then get a critical quick attack to one-hit KO Patrat. What a great start to this challenge! Never mind, Lillipup got a crit right back, which Quicksilver fortunately survived. After healing with its held Oranberry, Quicksilver can survive another tackle barring a crit, so I kept him in for one more quick attack. Afterwards, I switched into Mahogany, who was able to deal good damage thanks to Quicksilver previously using Leer against Lillipup. Sadly, Charon used a potion after a while, which Mahogany took personally. Well played for my Pokemon, landing crits when they mattered most. That's one badge down already. Now, here's a not so fun fact for you all. The only Unovan Pokemon that I could add to my collection at this point was Audino, who I did catch in the Verbank complex and named Carnation. I'm so sure that Carnation will be a staple team member and used often in this run. Since nothing else notable happened here, let's move right into the battle against Roxy. Roxy led off with Coughing, and I sent out my newly evolved Mahogany. Since Coughing has lower special defense than physical defense, I decided to use Ember against it, while Coughing goes for weak tackle. A second Ember brings Coughing into the red, so on the next turn while Roxy used a super potion, I went for a flame charge to get the speed boost. 2 more Embers took down Coughing, so Roxy sent out her Whirlipede. And since Whirlipede is half bug type, it went down to 2 more Embers, while its Venoshock would not have even threatened a KO against Mahogany even if it had crit. That's 2 gym badges down and still no deaths. I mean, you know, other than that one Purloin on Route 20, I guess. With Roxy defeated, I got to waste time in Pokestar Studios, which I then followed up with even more time waste in Castelia City. My next Pokemon encounter was a Sandile named Sienna. Now that is a great encounter to get, especially with its Moxie ability. I knew that Sienna would be invaluable, and I decided to EV train it on Route 4 against other Sandile and against Daruma. I have a bad habit of underestimating wild Pokemon, and that's exactly what happened here. So that's one pointless death so far, but at least I learned not to mess with Daruma. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Rosewood would have been fine if that Fire Fang didn't burn, but I guess that just balances out my lucky crits in that Charon battle. My next stop after those training tragedies was the Castelia sewers, where there are 0 legal encounters for me. However, the sewers connect to the relic passage, where by using a repel, I could avoid random encounters to guarantee a dust cloud to spawn, where I found Kobicha the drill burr. Sorry Sienna, you're getting replaced by the better ground type Pokemon. That feels a bit callous to say right now. Conveniently, the sewers also connect to this little green area deep in Castelia City, where I found my next team member, a Petalil named Celadon. No, not like Celadon City, like the color Celadon, which is what the city is named after, so sure, I named it after the city too, I guess. I just needed to get this cat out of the way before I could catch Celadon. With these encounters captured, it was time to take on Berg in the Castelia gym. But seeing as I have a fire type starter and an ugly bird on my team, actually scratch that. Mahogany did a Miltank impersonation to completely wipe out Berg's Swadloon and Dwebble, and once again, even a crit wasn't enough to take down Mahogany, who decimated Leonie with a single flame charge. After teaching Berg to never mess with me, my next destination was the Desert Resort, where my encounter was Pumpkin the Dwebble. Then on Route 5, I found a Minccino in a hidden grotto, which I named Ash, and since the hidden grotto doesn't technically count as being on Route 5, on the actual route I was able to capture Aaron the Solosis. On Route 16, I made up for the Purloin that I failed to catch early in the run by catching Amethyst the Leopard, and in Lost Lorn Forest, I misclicked Air Cutter against a Venipede. So yeah, no Scolipede for me, I guess. Sadly for Quicksilver, I also ended up accidentally punishing it for my mistake soon afterwards. After that catching spree, and one that I didn't feel that bad about, it was time to take on the electric gym leader, Elisa. Pay no attention to the death counter in the top right, I may have forgotten to update it after Quicksilver's little mishap. While Kobicha might seem to be an immediate win against Elisa thanks to its ground typing, Elisa actually leads with an Emolga, so I started off with Amethyst instead. A fake out on turn 1 dealt some decent damage and flinched Emolga, and I was able to safely switch into Kobicha on the next turn as Emolga tried to use Volt Switch. At this point, since Emolga wasn't able to really threaten Kobicha, I decided to set up a Hone Claws. This not only increases Kobicha's attack stat, but also made her Rock Slide much more likely to land and pick up the KO on Emolga. I also used Rock Slide against Flaffy, as I didn't want to risk getting paralyzed by its static ability if I made contact with Dig. And of course, one dig was enough to defeat Elisa's Zepstrika, winning me my 4th badge, and giving Kobicha enough experience to evolve as an added prize. Moving on towards the city that is objectively home to some of the best music in the entire Pokemon series, I encountered and captured Cyan the Ducklet. Next, in Driftvale City, I was given a Zorua that once belonged to N, and on Route 6, I found a Karrablast, which I named Almond. If you're concerned that I won't be able to evolve it, there's nothing to worry about. I was definitely playing this game on actual Nintendo hardware and could absolutely trade it with myself to evolve it. I totally didn't just use PK Hex to manually change that Karrablast into an Escavalier later in the run. Next up, in the Chargestone Cave, I ended up getting the exact encounter that I wanted, a Joltik named Canary. Fun fact, Electric is one of my favorite Pokemon types, and I really love Galvantula. It's such a cool Pokemon and will be really helpful later on in this run. And with all possible encounters captured at this point, I moved on to the battle against Clay. With the team I currently have, ground types can be dangerous for me, so I needed to make sure that I wouldn't have to rely on Mahogany or Kobicha here. Fortunately for me, Celadon learns Quiver Dance at level 28. Yeah, this gym was an easy sweep. After 2 Quiver Dances, Clay had his Krokorok use Torment, which sealed his fate, honestly. At +2 special attack and +1 speed after a Bulldoze, Celadon was able to alternate between Giga Drain and Magical Leaf to completely wipe out Clay's team. Perfect. Is it just me, or are these gyms way too easy in this run so far? I could have sworn I promised a lot of death. After defeating Clay and going through the Pokemon World Tournament, I flew back to Verbank City, where I was able to capture a Frillish that I forgot to nickname. And honestly, it's been like 6 months since I played this Nuzlocke, so I don't even remember what I ended up naming it. Sorry. Anyways, my next destination was Mistralton Cave, where I once again used the Repel trick to get myself Citrine the Axew, an excellent addition to my Unova team. and after getting through Charstone Cave, I went directly into my next gym battle. Between Kobicha, Pumpkin, and Canary, I have some pretty good Pokemon to help me deal with a flying type specialist. Skyla leads with her Swoobat, and I started off with Pumpkin, who got flinched on turn 1, but managed to set up Stealth Rocks on the following turn. I then switched Kobicha in on a weak Acrobatics and set up my Hone Claws. This once again allowed me to increase Kobicha's accuracy on Rock Slide to take down Swoobat. However, since Skyla sent out Swanna next, and Swanna is naturally faster than Excadrill, I decided to switch into Canary here. After the chip damage from Stealth Rocks, an Electro Web was enough to knock out Swanna. And since Stealth Rock also negates Skarmory's Sturdy ability, Canary was able to end the battle with one more Electro Web. With Skyla done, I continued my journey on Route 7, where I found a Zebstrika, which I named Corpse, since that's what Celadon turned it into. Good thing I already have a better electric type anyways. Then, on the Celestial Tower, I caught Violet the Litwick. Sure, I already have both a fire and a ghost type on my team, but I will never play a Gen 5 game and exclude Chandelure from my party. With the newest addition to the roster secured, I took the plane to Lentimus Town to continue onwards on my journey. Seeing as there's not much to do in Lentimus Town, I quickly moved on to Reversal Mountain. I found this weird house there that served little to no purpose, and after exiting, I ended up finding a baby. Too bad I can't catch this one. Flygon HG is not the only person whose favorite Pokemon is Flygon, by the way. Inside Reversal Mountain, I found my next encounter, a Woobat, which I intentionally didn't nickname as I had no plans on ever using it, to be 100% honest. After this, I joined up with Bianca to get through the mountain. Unfortunately, while going through it, I encountered a trainer who has a Darmanitan on her team. You already know my history with its basic form in this run, and sadly this Darmanitan was also out for blood as well. I switched out Kobicha, who I absolutely needed to keep alive, and sent in Azure on a Belly Drum. I am so lucky that I decided to go for Flare Blitz, as after Azure went down, Canary was able to come in for the Revenge KO. I don't want to see another Darmanitan for the rest of my life. After a while, I made it to Undella Town, which I'm probably mispronouncing, which I bypassed to get to Route 14 for my next encounter, a Mienfoo named Thistle. Another Unovan Pokemon that I'm quite fond of. But I was also fond of Celadon. Keyword being was, in the past tense, as I ended up losing her to this Scrafty who survived a Giga Drain. Clearly, this is where the deaths started to pile up, including this weird-looking blue dog, which Kobicha did not want to be friends with. But luckily, I was able to find a grass-type replacement on Route 12, where I caught Lime the Sawaddle. Do you know what's an even better grass-type than a Sawaddle, though? This Amoonguss named Pokeball that I found on Route 11. Yeah, I know, very original name. All my Pokemon were named after colors, except for this one. Anyways, I also captured Crimson the Pawniard on Route 9, another one of my Unovan favorites. I like a lot of Unovan Pokemon, honestly. And this section of the video is taking too long, let's go take on Drayden already. Wait, this clip isn't Drayden. Oh, right. I ended up losing Ash when I went for Tail Slap on a rough-skinned Druddigon holding a rocky helmet. Add that to the list of stupid and completely avoidable losses. Now for the battle against Drayden. Remember Citrine, the Axew who evolved into Haxorus by this point in the run? Yeah, he's about to make a grand debut here. But first, I needed to take a gamble. If Drayden's lead Druddigon uses Dragon Tail on turn 1 after I set up a Dragon Dance, I would take damage and waste the turn. But if Druddigon goes for literally anything else, that Dragon Dance and Citrine's rivalry ability could instantly win me the battle. So I lock in my Dragon Dance, and guess what move Druddigon used? If you guessed a worthless Slash, you would be correct. And since Citrine was now sitting at +1 attack and speed, a trio of Dragon Claws instantly wins me that battle. I wasn't kidding when I said that a successful Dragon Dance was an instant victory. But the good times must come to an end eventually, and in this case they end via Team Plasma causing a second Ice Age. What a well thought out plan by those idiots. After dealing with Team Plasma in Opaloosid City, I moved directly to Humalau City and took on Marlin for my final gym badge right away. Marlin leads with his Caracosta, and I started off with Thistle, getting a fake out to bypass Caracosta's Sturdy ability. After that, one jump kick was enough to take the tortoise down. Marlin's next Pokemon was Wailord, and I used U-turn to switch into Canary, as Wailord went for an annoying Amnesia. This prevented Canary's Charge Beam from picking up the KO, though I did get a special attack boost on Canary. Wailord went down after a second Charge Beam, and Marlin was down to his ace Jellicent. Rather than risking not picking up the KO, I decided to switch into Pokeball, who easily tanked a Scald and an Ominous Wind, hitting Jellicent with a Toxic in return. And given how little damage Pokeball takes from Jellicent, and his ability to recover HP with Giga Drain or Synthesis, I was easily able to obtain the final gym badge, once again without losing a single Pokemon. So that's all 8 badges with 0 Pokemon lost to them somehow. These gyms kind of suck, don't they? With all 8 badges in my possession, all that's left is to deal with Team Plasma and take on the Elite Four. But first, I encountered this weird cow on Route 22, which I decided to ignore. And beyond the seaside cave, I stumbled upon the Plasma Frigate, a dangerous place for foolish trainers like myself who are prone to losing their Pokemon to some stupid shit. And this is, of course, where the deaths in the run really started to pile up. Our first unfortunate loss was Canary, who survived an acrobatics and a poison jab in this double battle, but sadly was lost to the poison caused by the latter move. That one really hurt since, as I said earlier, I really love Galvantula. Our next destination was the Giant Chasm, where I would continue my battles against Team Plasma. Here, I stumbled upon the Plasma Frigate. Oh god, I'm gonna lose more Pokemon on this thing, aren't I? Of course I am! Turns out, I'm apparently terrible at double battles in Pokemon games, as I decided to keep Crimson in against a Scrafty, who of course obliterated Crimson in a single hit. Ironically, I knew to switch Kobicha out at that point, so I'm clearly playing favorites here, but it was still a pretty stupid decision to keep Crimson in the battle there. Though, to be fair, keeping Kobicha alive did help me get a sweep against Zinzalin not too much later. The fight against Colress then got a bit terrifying, as Kobicha took more damage than it should have against the Magnets thanks to their sturdy abilities, Violet got paralyzed by Magnezone, and Kobicha nearly died to an energy ball from this ugly alien thing. I genuinely would have straight up quit this run if Kobicha had gone down here. Instead, Thistle went down as I decided to switch the fighting type Pokemon into a psychic type. Once again, my own stupid decisions caused my Pokemon to suffer. I need to stop playing Nuzlockes. At this point, me playing them is just inhumane. Luckily, Mahogany was fast enough to get revenge against the alien and end the battle against Colress. After going back to Humilau to heal up my Pokemon and add some living Pokemon back onto my team, I went back to the Frigate for my battle against Getsis, who decided to run away rather than battle. So instead, I let Mahogany massacre the Shadow Triad in his place. Once the Shadow Triad was taken care of, all that was left to do was to take on Kyurem White. With its massive stats, Kyurem is especially dangerous to Pokemon that aren't Mahogany. Honestly, Tepig was the right choice in this run after all. Getsis, of course, wasn't so happy about me getting a one-hit KO on Kyurem, so naturally I needed one last climactic battle against him. The two Pokemon that caused issues in this battle were his lead Cofagrigus and his Seismitoad. The Cofagrigus landed a Toxic against Violet, and then got a double protect to keep itself alive while toxic damage ramped up. This meant that with a critical Shadow Ball, his Cofagrigus was able to defeat Zoroark, who was disguised as Violet the whole time. As for Seismitoad, I didn't have any good Pokemon to switch into against it, so I decided to keep in Violet and hoped to get a critical hit with Shadow Ball, which unfortunately didn't happen. And of course, Seismitoad did manage to land a Muddy Water, taking out one of my favorite team members. And so, in the short period of time between me defeating Marlin and taking on Getsis, I managed to lose 5 of my Pokemon, including ones that I planned on using in the Elite Four, such as Crimson. But I was still undeterred, and knew that I still stood a chance against Elite Four and Champion. But before that, I of course had to make my way through Victory Road. While in Victory Road, I ended up losing 2 more Pokemon. The first was my Zubat, who failed to get a KO on this Sock after I switched it in on a Rock Slide. And then, against my rival Logan, Cyan ended up going down against his Bouffalant. I kinda hate saying it, but those honestly weren't terrible losses. I really didn't plan on using Cyan at any point in the future, and there's a reason why I never nicknamed that Zubat, so moving on. After a little bit of preparation, it was finally time to take on the Elite Four. The Pokemon I brought with me are the ones on the left side of the screen, of course including 3 of the most important Pokemon from this run, Mahogany, Kobicha, and Citrine. First up, I decided to take on Caitlyn. I feel like I've seen her somewhere before. For this battle, I of course led with Amethyst, going for a Night Slash on turn 1 as Amethyst was holding a Razor Claw to increase its crit rate. But unfortunately, no crit happened, so Amethyst failed to KO Caitlyn's Musharna, who landed a Charge Beam. Luckily, Caitlyn wasted her full restore here, so Amethyst picked up the KO after 2 more Night Slashes. Amethyst then failed to KO Reuniclus with a Night Slash, and thankfully dodged a Focus Miss. That could have been disastrous, and the RNG really isn't in my favor right now, though Amethyst was still able to pick up the KO on the second turn. Luckily, Night Slash was a one-hit KO against Sigilyph, once again without a crit. I genuinely don't understand what the point of me giving this Razor Claw to Amethyst was. Against Gothitelle, I decided to adjust the U-turn out and switch it to Kobicha, as Gothitelle wasted its turn going for a Thunderbolt. An X-Scissor here once again barely failed to pick up the KO, though Psychic didn't do much damage back to Kobicha either, so one final X-Scissor gave me the win over Caitlyn, albeit barely. Next up was Chantal, because if I'm being honest, I was saving Marshall for last. Chantal leads out with a Cofagrigus, and I once again led with Amethyst, this time finally getting a critical hit on Night Slash for the one-hit KO. Against Golurk, I decided to U-turn again, sending out Almond to tank an Earthquake. A second Earthquake brought Almond into red HP, but one single Iron Head was enough to take Golurk down, with a critical hit. Seriously? I barely got them with Razor Claw and Power Night Slash, but an Iron Head gets it immediately. Just Pokemon shenanigans, I guess. Third is Chandelure, and I clearly needed to switch out Almond. I sent out Amethyst again, who did not take Shadow Ball well at all, but managed to get the one-hit KO with Night Slash, and get burned by Flame Body in the process. That's mildly annoying. Fortunately though, Kobicha was able to safely switch in against Drifblim, picking up the KO with a single Rock Slide to win me this battle. Third of course was Grimsley, since I'm still scared of Marshall. Grimsley leads with a Leopard, a good strategy for sure. Meanwhile, I started this battle with Mahogany. Fake Out caused Mahogany to flinch on the first turn, but Mahogany was able to tank an Aerial Ace pretty well on the next turn, and eliminate Leopard with one Hammer Arm. Grimsley's second Pokemon is his Intimidate Crocodile, so I had no choice but to switch into Kobicha here, who was kept safe from Earthquake with its Air Balloon, and was able to get the KO with a single X-Scissor. Next comes Scrafty, so it's time for another switch, this time into Almond as Scrafty goes for Rock Tomb. Scrafty's Brick Break deals less than half damage to Almond afterwards, who was able to get the KO with 2 Choice Band buffed X-Scissors, though I was admittedly risking a crit here. And lastly, Bisharp's Aerial Ace barely tickles Kobicha, who switched in and brought it down with an Earthquake. That's 3 Elite Four members done. Last is Marshall, whose fighting types I am still terrified of. My only answer into them was Erin, who isn't exactly fast enough to be a reliable sweeper. Still, I sent her out first against Throw, and took a little bit of damage from a Payback before setting up a Reflect. A second Payback does even less damage, and Psychic brought Throw down to very low HP. As Marshall went for a full restore, I went for a recover, bringing both Pokemon to full HP. Rinse and repeat the Payback versus Psychic turns, and finally, Throw goes down. Next is Mienshao, who jumped into the air for a bounce, letting Erin set up another Reflect. Hilariously enough, bounce ended up missing, and I ended up using recover to get Erin back to full HP again. Mienshao then used U-turn, throwing Sock out into a Psychic, though it survived thanks to Sturdy. That ability has been really annoying. Luckily, Sock did nothing of value, since it just missed a Payback before going down to another Psychic. Apparently, giving Erin a Bright Powder was a really good idea, because Mienshao missed a bounce when it returned to the field, letting Erin set up a third Reflect. Hilariously, Mienshao then used U-turn again, this time forcing out Conkeldurr, who was immediately wiped out by a single Psychic. And so, ironically enough, the Elite Four member that I feared the most was actually the easiest one to defeat, as Erin was able to do it all on her own. That's every Elite Four member defeated, without me losing even a single Pokemon. And so somehow, I actually managed to make it to the champion battle, even after losing 13 Pokemon throughout the run. All I need to do now is defeat Iris, and I'll have somehow managed to beat the Unovalocke. Iris leads with a Hydreigon, and I start off with Amethyst, naturally landing a critical hit on Fake Out on turn 1, then getting Hydreigon low with U-turn and switching into Citrine. Citrine actually managed to survive a Dragon Pulse and took down Hydreigon with 2 Dragon Claws. Iris sent out Lapras next, and I sent out Aaron, who took a manageable amount of damage from Surf and Ice Beam before setting up a Light Screen, but unfortunately got put to sleep by Sing before she could go for a recover. But since Lapras was going for Ice Beam against Aaron, I decided to switch into Mahogany and take out Lapras immediately with Hammer Arm. Next was Aggron, who went for a Double Edge as I switched into Almond. This time, Almond was holding a Citrus Berry, which activated after a Rock Slide that also caused a flinch. But fortunately, a critical reversal and 1 Iron Head were enough to take down Aggron. Iris' fourth Pokemon was Druddigon, so I switched into Mahogany again on a Flamethrower. This time, a Hammer Arm wasn't enough to get the KO, and a Rock Slide brought Mahogany's HP low. Sadly, the decreased speed from Hammer Arm meant that on the next turn, Druddigon was able to go first and end my precious Mahogany's life with 1 more Rock Slide. That one hurt, but his death won't be in vain. Thank you for everything you've done up to this point, Mahogany. With Druddigon low, I was able to send out Citrine for the revenge kill, prompting Iris to send out her Archeops. This thing hits like a truck, at least until you get its HP below half, and with Citrine already so low, I decided to switch into Almond, who could not tank Acrobatics well at all. With no other safe switches, I decided that Almond unfortunately had to go down here as well, letting me safely switch in Amethyst. A Fake Out for Chip and a Sucker Punch on the next turn ensured that Archeops' HP fell below that half-point threshold, so the following Rock Slide did a lot less damage than it would have otherwise thanks to its defeatist ability. A second Sucker Punch then took down that pesky bird. Last up is the ace, Iris' Haxorus. Here, I decided to use U-turn to get chip damage off and switch into Erin. She performed amazingly against Marshall, but with her asleep in this battle, she wouldn't have been able to help much, and so I made the very difficult decision to let her go down as well, letting me safely switch into Kobicha. And this is where disaster strikes. I go for an Earthquake, but barely didn't pick up the KO, letting Haxorus set up a Dragon Dance. It's all over now. All the gyms I breezed through, every unfortunate loss, they all meant nothing. With that one Dragon Dance, Haxorus now outspeeds my whole team and is able to hit Kobicha with a devastating Earthquake. No, I'm actually completely kidding. I made sure to give Kobicha a Focus Sash for this battle, letting her finish this run off with a fitting and completely unnecessary critical hit on her final Earthquake. Also, there's the fact that Amethyst was still alive and had access to Sucker Punch, so realistically, I was going to be totally fine in that battle either way. Just trying to be a bit dramatic for the finale. And that was the end of the run. Despite a whopping 16 deaths in the run, excluding a few Pokemon that I failed to catch for a variety of reasons, I somehow managed to make it all the way to the champion battle and end up winning my White 2 Unovalocke. Honestly, I never even expected to win this one. Like I said earlier, the Generation 5 games are the ones that I have the least experience with, other than Generation 8, which I played a grand total of 1 time. Can't wait to get to that Nuzlocke eventually. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel for some more Pokemon Nuzlockes, as well as some other Pokemon related content as well. With this run completed, the next Nuzlocke that I do will be an XY Kalos lock, which I still need to solidify the rules for. I feel like using Mega Evolutions in that run might make it a bit too easy, but there's barely any other Kalos Pokemon to use in those games. But before that, I'll be showing you all a casual Crystal version run, where I'll hopefully be proving that Chikorita is a way better starter Pokemon than people think that it is. Seriously, it's not that bad of a Pokemon at all. It's a lot better than some of the Pokemon I used in this run. No offense to my Pokemon in this run. And as always, thanks for watching.